So that was what I got some shade for. And then we dug out the Switch games. So my wife was like, "Where's the Switch stuff?" So we've been sitting around, just kind of enjoying the ability to like not be in our offices.
Mm-hmm.
So just pulling out back catalog of Switch games. So that's it. It's been really chill. Trying to get away from our desks and stuff. Nothing too exciting. Nothing too exciting. I've been watching the world kind of burn in the news.
Yeah.
There's stuff I don't enjoy talking about because there's like real ramifications and real consequences, which makes the other stuff that much more important to enjoy because you're like, Game Pass is the end of the world. Well, great. Let's talk about that because that's a lot less scary than the news article I was reading before this.
Man, yeah, I was listening to some stuff and I was like, you gotta balance it. Like as much as like it's fun to be in the know, it's like you gotta just turn it off. Same thing goes with social media. Like step outside, live in the moment, and don't try to let the things you can't control. Get out.
All I'm gonna say is I'm so happy that I didn't stay where I was for the mount because I got really lucky yesterday. If social media is correct, like where I went that night, I was lucky I was not there that night because I don't know why, but it was like I'm not going to meet. Yeah, it was.
We've all seen the post. It's things are burning, so it's like, oh my gosh. So hopefully everybody, wherever you're listening to this in the world, you're safe. And yeah, just as a kind of reminder, it is a healthy thing to kind of step into a video game from time to time or talk about, obviously, the video game news. Chris alluded to it. That's going to be kind of our first topic of the show. I also want to kind of give some thoughts, impressions about other MMOs and stuff that's going on, like with Throne of Liberty. And I would love to get these guys' thoughts on the No Man's Sky and the Light No Fire kind of news that has been going out this week. And then we're going to end the show as we usually do with 20 questions. So it's just been probably the most fun part of the show. It'd be kind of crazy to see how we could just do one day, like one podcast out of the whole year. We'll just make it a whole 20 questions and we just see how many games that can be got by the panel or something like that. But anyway, maybe we'll do that who knows? We're coming up on episode 200. That could be kind of a fun milestone or something like that. Let's jump into the news as it relates to Microsoft Game Pass. The TLDR, for those of you who aren't in the know, Microsoft announced that they are increasing the price of Game Pass. They also announced they're introducing a standard tier, which does not include day and date, and only on console. So it's like they're like, hey, thanks for buying our console. You're gonna have to have the ultimate tier if you want day and date. Otherwise, it's this other thing. And I think that from a branding and marketing perspective is really, really confusing. Chris shared a link with us talking about how the FTC has attacked Microsoft for this news, because this is exactly what they warned about when they were fighting the merger with Activision Blizzard. What does the panel here think about all of the developments we've seen over the last couple of days?
It's a bad look. It's a bad look. Everything's going up in price, and that on its own seems to be the justification for going up in price. But the head of a iced tea brand here in the United States came out, and there was an interview. It's not new, but he was asked why they're not upping their prices, and he said because they don't have to. And so, like, I think the frustrating thing is, like, we're all aware costs are going up. We're all aware every time we go to the grocery store, every time we go to the gas pump, every time we have to pay insurance on something or whatever, that costs in general are rising, especially in the housing market. But none of us are seeing that on the paycheck end of things. And so it's just this general frustration that, like, all the economy metrics are good, but like the sentiment just doesn't align with that. So in theory, we have these regulatory bodies filled with unelected bureaucrats who are supposed to be experts within their field, who are supposed to do things that protect us and serve us through, regardless of who's in power and what their agenda is. We have groups that protect the quality of our water, and we have groups that, in this case, protect buyer protections. That's the FTC's job. Like, that's their job. And so I think they're rightfully upset here, like in this case, because from the outset, it kind of looks like Microsoft is screwing with us. Like, it kind of looks like, especially to affect consoles directly, it's like great. And the people most captive, the people with the least ability to look at an alternative. I mean, it's all but like, and your games might get interrupted from time to time for an ad. Like that's that's where we're at. This is like a streaming service ad roll level. And I don't know that like their profit margins, and then they're doing this at the same time that they're laying people off and they're shutting down servers that they're like bragging about how good they are. It's like, it's a lot of things in a row that make it look like somebody is applying pressure to a market from a position of strength, not responding to something that is like an existential threat to their business. And they're like, unfortunately, we have to raise prices.
Yeah, to that point, I think a lot of people expected the price to go up once the Activision deal closed, and we were all kind of like expecting it. What I think the biggest issue is they introduced that new standard tier, and it very much makes no sense because, as you said, it only affects the console players, and so they're obviously trying to drive people to Ultimate. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but the messaging makes no sense. And the fact that instead of introducing like a cloud only tier, they introduce a tier on consoles, it really just makes it less appealing unless you just want the library of games, and then no messaging on how those first party titles will eventually get into Game Pass. Will it be a year, 6 months, case by case, which I think is what they eventually kind of alluded to, but it's hard to sell Game Pass now unless you're talking about the Ultimate tier. And that I think is like just what the messaging they want it to be. But every time they introduce like a chart or something, my rule of thumb is if you're selling me a game or a service and you have a chart, you've already lost me. I don't want to compare options. I just want to know what I'm getting, And so by introducing that standard tier and muddying the waters on which one for like the lay person, the common person, that it maybe isn't, the hardcore gamer that just wants the best all the time. They're just going to look at this and go, I don't know anymore.
Imagine if HBO bought Netflix. I don't think they have the money for that, but sure. And they raise the price of Netflix that available, but you are no longer allowed to watch Netflix originals until everybody's told you how they end.
Right. Yeah, it's bananas.
And they're like, I don't know why anybody's upset about this. Like, that's weird.
The original promise of Game Pass, like the very launch of Game Pass, was day and date exclusives.
Day and date. Yeah.
And so now you're not even getting that because if you go with the core tier, you're just getting a small set of Game Pass. It's like to me that's like the sample, right?
Yeah.
You get.
It's basically what PlayStation Plus does for the essentials.
Yeah.
Basically,
it's just at least the PlayStation Plus tiers. That the middle tier kind of makes sense here. The new middle tier for Game Pass doesn't. I don't know why anyone would pay, what is it, the $12 a month now, as opposed to core, and instead of just going all in on Ultimate.
$12 a month, I would say, would be not that bad. Like, that's not the worst price. No, it's $15 a month.
Okay.
Which means it's only about $4 cheaper than Ultimate.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're not like that. Sorry, it's $5 cheaper than Ultimate. But still, at $5, you might as well just jump up to Ultimate because then you'll get your day in day, games